Well, good afternoon and welcome to this video at sundown here in tropical North Queensland, Australia. It's not a travel video. I wanted to make this one regarding a few upcoming things. It's a bit of a housekeeping video, and also to address the idea of poverty consciousness or lack consciousness, which is prevalent throughout the human condition. And I'm not talking about how to use spiritual principles to become financially wealthy or anything like that, but I'm talking about getting out of the survival mode, which most people tend to live in until they realize what they're doing. But firstly, we have on the 18th of this month, we have a suicide and spirituality meeting at the community gardens, which is at the end of the street near the base hospital. That's if you live locally, of course. In the community garden there, where the boardwalk, the Blue Water Quay, you know, that, what's it called? The cycleway, walkway goes along. On the waterfront there's a community garden. If you haven't seen it, there's a flyer for it on my Facebook page, which will probably be just one or two posts below where I put this video. It'll be a good afternoon for anyone who's interested in getting a ground level kind of basic coming to terms sort of sense of themselves, at least conceptually, regarding suicide and the nature of the physical vessel, and looking at that from a spiritual perspective and everything else, which will help to alleviate a lot of the anxiety of time traveling, which is what we're doing, traveling through time, or at least until you make a decision to pursue your spiritual good. You're time traveling, and then you sort of start to travel vertically, which is, I'm not going to explain that right now, but you'll get it when you get it. The Health and Harmony Day is on the 25th out at Cuttable Hotel. I'll be having a stall there with Course in Miracles books and brochures to give away and things like that, and doing a talk at some point during the day, I'm not exactly sure when, about A Course in Miracles, how to use the book. It's a self-study book, so when I say how to use it, I mean it's up to you how you use it, but just a general overview of the book, really. And it should be a fun day. There'll be lots of stalls and different people from all walks and stages of their own evolutionary process, offering all sorts of things to help you achieve that or go beyond that. But like I said at the beginning of this video, I want to talk about that poverty consciousness. Now, a lot of people, when they begin a spiritual journey, have this sort of false concept of the idea of it being that you have to give everything away and become poor and live with nothing, live in faith. And that's true in a sense. You don't have to give everything away or, become a pauper or anything. But what you're essentially doing on your spiritual process, in your spiritual processing, I should say, is giving up the meaning that you've given everything. So you can have the nice house and the nice car and whatever else, but it just doesn't mean anything. If somebody said to you, or let's say if God spoke to you from the sky tomorrow and said, I want you to go and live in India or something or other, and would you be happy to just walk out? Does it mean anything? Or let me just sell my house first, Lord, or any of that. So there has to be no meaning attached to anything. And this is purely in the pursuit of your enlightenment, right? So the other end of that stick, of course, is that there are those people who proselytize and promote themselves in the name of God, charging exorbitant amounts of money for spiritual workshops and seminars and weekend retreats and things like that. and probably do very well out of it, thank you very much. But that's not the teaching either. In fact, they're probably further from the truth than those who are giving everything away, believing that's how they have to live. Because it's done deliberately. There's a deliberate attempt to interpose a secondary concern between the giving and the receiving of the technology of spiritual information that people seek in order to find their own internal liberation from the chaotic nature of their ego voice. But I don't want to get into that too much either. I'm rather in this video going to stay more in the idea of poverty consciousness and what it is and how to get out of it, or how to at least begin to look at yourself from that perspective, so maybe you can make an honest decision about getting out of it. Poverty consciousness, of course, being the idea of lack. I don't have enough money, or I don't have enough food, or I never seem to be able to make ends meet, and all of these sorts of things. Now, if you look at the idea that God is complete, right? God is whole, God is perfect, God is all-encompassing. There is no lack in God, right? So these situations that seem to be repetitive and may show up for you again and again are simply situations wherein I'm learning that I need to find God in this situation. I'm learning that I need to find my supply in this situation, which is of God. Now, that's going to require a leap of faith. And everything being a repetitive pattern in the mind, right? So every activity of human consciousness, every activity of human experience operates in a kind of a treadmill where it comes around again and again and again, sometimes really quickly every day, sometimes once a week, sometimes once a month, a year, every decade, 20 years, whatever, it doesn't really matter. But identifying these cycles or these patterns by the emotional signature they carry is important, and it's what we sort of learn to become vigilant. Well, we become vigilant for our own sense of inner peace, but then anything that disturbs our inner peace becomes the subject matter for our spiritual application of the principles that we're learning, which is forgiveness, patience, tolerance, giving and receiving, and all of these sorts of things. So if I find myself in a cyclical kind of pattern of never having enough, it's like, well, I'm not a victim. I'm simply in a classroom here. I'm not a victim. I'm being presented with an opportunity to learn, because if God is my supply and God is always bountiful and plentiful, and I want to live in abundance, and abundance isn't really the accurate word here, but if I want to live in the fullness of God's bounty or the fullness of God's love and have that supply all my needs, like I always say, Jesus pays the bills, I need to learn to let go of my poverty consciousness and take a leap of faith into something. Now, when it was presented to me many years ago, it was a simple matter. I was unemployed. I had government support for a while, and I was working I wasn't working a couple of days a week at that time. I'd quit my job to go and attend to the healing centre that I was studying at. But I was fed up. I'd reached a point in my life where I was fed up of never having enough. I'd get to the end of the week and my government supply would dwindle up, and I'd have like $1, or maybe I didn't have any money and sometimes wouldn't eat for a few days. I'd have to eat from the church, and I was very lucky to have that. But I couldn't even afford a cup of coffee sometimes, and my friend Josie said to me, "You've got poverty consciousness, you never have enough money," and blah, blah, blah. And I'd never heard of the term, and I asked her all about it, and she said, you need to take a leap of faith and step into your lack in faith. And so she took me down to the Telstra store, the telephone shop, and made me sign up a 2-year contract for a mobile phone, which I'd never had one before, which I definitely couldn't afford. It was $30 a month. That worked out at $7 something a week, and that was 2 cups of coffee at the time, or 3 cups of coffee. I definitely couldn't afford it. I was living in an existence mode. Like, I wasn't living, I was existing. And I was terrified to make the commitment, right, which is the leap of faith I was terrified when I had to take the pen and sign my name on the bottom of the contract for the 2-year period. There was this moment of anxiety just come up, and I went, oh God, and then of course the decision, yep, just do it. And I did it knowing that I was probably going to put myself further into debt and things. They'd repossessed the phone and, you know, all of this sort of stuff. I don't know how it all works, but I literally had nothing to my name in those days. I did walk out of my house. I did leave everything. Looking back, I didn't have to do that, but that's how I did it. That's what I thought I had to do at the time as well, which is why I mentioned that at the start of this video. Anyway, 3 days later, and 3 days seems to be the miraculous number here. 3 days later, I got a call from a friend of mine who had a small orchard down the road who needed someone to tend the orchard 3 days a week. Rent was included in an on-site caravan and a small pay packet, but it added to my government support, and I had more than enough to pay for my telephone and a few coffees and then some, you know, like. And it was one of those moments where you step back and you go, wow, that happened because I made a commitment, or was it going to happen anyway? You know, and you don't really know. But I remember making a mental decision to make the commitment, to put myself in the fire line and trust God, trust the universe. And then it happened. And because of other things that have occurred to me during the last 25, 35 years of living this kind of miraculous faith-based life, medical things as well, overcoming cancer without chemotherapy and just through faith, you know, through prayer of the heart for the healing of the mind that believes it's a body, boom, shanka, no cancer. And literally. And, you know, but because of other things that had happened, I knew that there is only God's will, right? There is only God's will. If I deny it, I'm going to live in lack. I'm going to have poverty. But I'm the one that has to look at every aspect of my life. I'm the one that has to look at the way I think about things and see where it is that I am denying the bounty of God's will in my life. Because God's will for me is perfect happiness, and if I have a lack, He will fill it if I allow Him. Right? I have free will. God doesn't just force Himself, you know, into my life. I have free will, and God respects that, and that's the law of the universe, to respect free will. Those who don't respect free will and enforce their will upon others have a nasty, nasty shock coming in the afterlife, and I wouldn't wish that upon my worst enemy. But we're all in this together, so until time is done, we're all beholding to each other, which is why I make these videos and live my life the way I do, to try and offer myself for whatever example I can of this to others. Sometimes I feel not a very good example, but other times I have these little moments, like with the telephone and the cancer and whatever. Those are things I can offer and put forth as examples of being rewarded by faith and being nurtured, rather than rewarded probably is a better word, being nurtured through an action of faith and surrendering to God in a place where I don't know how to solve my own situations. Right? When you're young, of course, you're probably not interested in that. But as you get older, you start to look at life and go, whew, this is hard work. Now, when you have a poverty consciousness situation and you finally realize it, or you're finally willing to accept it and own up to it and take responsibility for it, and you are willing to make the commitment to, and whatever it looks like, it'll look like for everybody. I don't know if it's going to look like going and signing a phone contract for you, or who the hell knows. I really don't know. But you have to make the commitment first. It's like in the Field of Dreams, the movie, build it and they will come. Right? Now that's an act of faith. Build the stadium and the baseball diamond, which Field of Dreams was about baseball, and they will come. And he built it and they did come. But he had to make that commitment through doing that building first. And whatever it is for you, it'll be for you. But it's an incredible journey. It's really an incredible journey. The thing with God being completely whole is when you have, and this is where I didn't like the word abundance really. Abundance tends to imply more than you need. You know, I'm abundant. I have stuff I can give away, and that's fine. Of course, give it away. It'll just keep coming back. Your cup will be completely filled up, and that is the true meaning of abundance. But there's kind of rules and considerations in giving as well. I mean, protect everything you value by the act of giving it away. But if you give away something you own, then obviously you're going to lose ownership of it and you won't own it anymore. So there will be a void or a gap in that thing. But in the giving it away of spiritual knowledge, right, as you do that, you raise the vibration of spiritual understanding and spiritual participation across the entire universe, across the realm, and everybody's bounty is increased. Everybody's ability to participate is increased. Everybody's access to technology is increased, which is why I always ask people, share these videos. If you got something out of it, if you think there's something helpful here, share it, tag people in it. It's like, for goodness sakes, look at the human race. Look where we're at, 2,000 years since the resurrection, and there's still people carrying buckets of water on their head in Africa, walking 10 miles to the well each day. It's like, we're past that. Let's share this technology. Let's start to be more miraculous about our giving and our receiving. Receiving, some people don't like to receive. You know, they feel unworthy. Like, get over it. Get over it. You're a child of God. You're just as worthy as anyone else. It doesn't matter what the world tells you about yourself. It doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter what temptation road, what road has led you down from temptation or anything like that. You're not guilty. You're a child of God. You're not guilty. Right? A dream, a world, the physical nature of things cannot tell you who you are or what you're entitled to or not entitled to, etc. Right? This is just an experience in the journey of the soul, and we're learning to improve the record of our journey of the soul by processing through those places in our mind where we are fearful, where we believe in lack and hatred and jealousy and envy and all of these things that spring from fear. You could do it all in one big chunk if you wanted to, and draw your circle in the desert like Jesus for 40 days and 40 nights, but we have a much gentler way of doing it now, which is A Course in Miracles, and you can read the text, do the lessons one a day for a year, and read the teacher's manual at the back, and begin to participate in a whole new way to see yourself and the world that is going to bring you nothing but, well, initially it'll bring you a bit of anxiety and stuff as you go through the healing process, but eventually you'll get to a clearer place where it brings you this incredible sense of self, of being connected in the world, but not of it, but connected to life itself. And that's the greatest gift you can have, to feel complete and fulfilled within oneself, rather than searching out there all the time for meaning in people and possessions and power and fame and all of these look at me, you know, like, seriously. So poverty consciousness is just another step or another rung on the ladder, and it doesn't just apply to finance, it applies to everything. It applies to whatever you feel you have a lack with in your life, and it'll show up symbolically. The physical realm is a symbolic representation of your own thinking, and if you feel like you have a lack in your life in social criteria or financial or medical or whatever it is, it doesn't really matter, a lack or a shortfall, it's because you're denying the flow, right? And you might say to me, well, I believe in God, fuck off, you know, like, I'm not denying the flow. And it's like, well, somewhere you are, you know. Churches and temples and mosques and things aren't filled with holy and righteous people. They're filled with people that are going to learn how to be holy and righteous, and how to find God, and how to participate in the energetic presence of the divine nature of life. You know, it's really a beautiful thing. A beautiful thing. So anyway, I hope this video has been helpful, but that's where I was going with that, the idea of supply, of giving and receiving, and you give of yourself, and the cup will be filled up again. How that transpires and how that translates to the physical nature of things, like for me, it was a little 3-day-a-week job. I could pay my bills, and there was a little bit left over that I was able to go and buy a coffee for a friend and things like that. You know, so one of the guiding sort of principles in that is God will give you everything you need, not less, not more, everything you need. It's up to you to ask God, what do I do with this that I have received? Who do I give it to? How do I extend the love that I have been given, the blessing that I have been given? What would you have me do, Lord? All right. And whether you hear an answer from the sky or a quiet voice in your mind or whatever it is, you might just have a sense of things. You will be answered. All prayer is answered. But it's the integrity or the depth of integrity from the prayer of the heart that enables you to recognize the answer when it's given. If it's just lip service, you're probably not going to recognize it. You'll forget that you even said a prayer. But when your prayer is meaningful and you actually really want it, you really want it, you'll be like, oh, this is the answer to my prayer. You'll remember. And you'll be aware of it when it shows up. You'll be like, oh, this isn't what I expected, but this is the answer to my prayer. 3 days a week working in an orchard. Thank you, Father. All right, anyway, I hope that's good. Just a short one. And don't forget, in the beginning, I mentioned on the 18th, the suicide thing at 1 o'clock in the afternoon at the community garden. And the post is on my wall. And also the Health and Harmony Day on the 25th. It'd be great to see you there if you live locally. And of course, every Sunday now until we finish the workbook, we are doing a Zoom meeting. Contact Tyna, T-Y-N-A, Tyna Tyler, T-Y-L-E-R, on my in my friends list. She will send you the link for that meeting, and it'd be great to see you there. It's a full participation meeting, and it can be very confronting, right? And that's how I like it. We're not here to put our hands together, namaste, none of that crap. We're just like straight into it. Let's do the work. Let's get it done. So, all right, I love you. Peace.